The day Earth made first contact with the Galactic Empire started like any other Tuesday at the United Nations headquarters in New York. That was until every screen, phone, and computer started showing the same message. A massive fleet of alien ships had entered the solar system. Tom Baker, the UN Secretary General, straightened his blue tie and cleared his throat. Around him, world leaders gathered in the emergency session hall, their faces a mix of worry and excitement. This was humanity's big moment, their first meeting with an advanced alien civilization. "They're approaching Earth's orbit," announced Mike Rogers, the chief of space monitoring. His fingers flew across the keyboard as he brought up the main display. "They'll be visible to the naked eye in 3, 2, 1. The room fell silent. Then someone snorted. Another person covered their mouth. Within seconds, the entire UN assembly burst into uncontrolled laughter. There, displayed on the massive screen and now visible through the chamber's tall windows, was the most powerful fleet of the Galactic Empire. It looked exactly like a collection of floating teapots, complete with spouts and handles, painted in pastel colors that would have been more at home in a baby's nursery. Those are warships," gasped Tom, wiping tears from his eyes. He tried to compose himself. After all, he was about to represent humanity in its first alien contact. But every time he looked up at the ships, another wave of giggles hit him. The largest ship, apparently the flagship, resembled a giant purple teapot with gold trim. Small antenna-like structures stuck out from its top like a tea strainer. Smaller ships that looked like sugar bowls and cream pitchers surrounded it in perfect formation. "We are receiving their transmission," announced Mike, still fighting to keep a straight face. "They want to speak with Earth's leaders." The main screen flickered, and there stood Grand Admiral Lord Silvercrest of the Galactic Empire. He was tall and thin, dressed in what he probably thought was an intimidating uniform. It was covered in tiny bells that jingled with every movement, and his official hat looked remarkably like an upside-down flower pot. "Greetings, primitive Earth dwellers," Lord Silvercrest announced in a voice he clearly meant to be imposing. "We are the mighty Galactic Empire, rulers of 1,000 star systems. Tremble before our magnificent." He paused, noticing that Tom Baker was shaking. "Are you trembling already?" Yes, absolutely trembling," Tom managed to say between suppressed laughs. Around him, world leaders were biting their lips, covering their mouths, or pretending to cough. "Excellent." Lord Silvercrest beamed, his bells jingling merrily. "We have come to incorporate your world into our glorious empire. Prepare for our landing ceremony, where we will demonstrate our supreme power through interpretive dance and synchronized humming." That did it. Tom completely lost his composure, along with everyone else in the room. The laughter was so loud it echoed through the UN building. Lord Silvercrest's face turned an interesting shade of pink. "Why do you make these strange sounds? Is this your way of showing submission?" No, Tom tried to explain, gasping for breath. "We're just very happy to meet you." "Ah. Then you already understand our magnificence. Splendid." Lord Silvercrest clapped his hands, creating a sound like wind chimes in a breeze. "We shall land in your largest gathering space in exactly 1 solar rotation. Prepare the traditional welcoming decorations. I assume you have enough glitter." As the transmission ended, Tom looked around the room at his fellow world leaders. They were all thinking the same thing. How were they going to handle this first contact without offending the Empire by laughing at everything they did? "Well," Tom said, straightening his tie again, "I suggest we all get this out of our systems now. We have exactly 24 hours to learn how to keep a straight face while watching interpretive dance from aliens in jingling uniforms who fly teapot-shaped spaceships." The UN assembly dissolved into laughter once more. Humanity's first contact with alien life wasn't going quite as anyone had expected, but it was certainly memorable. The next day, Central Park in New York had been cleared for the Empire's landing ceremony. Thousands of people gathered behind safety barriers, many holding back smiles as they watched the giant teapot-shaped ships descend from the sky. Tom Baker stood at the front of the welcoming committee, along with several world leaders and military commanders. They had all practiced their straight faces all night, but nothing could have prepared them for what came next. The main ship's door opened with a musical chime, and out marched the Empire's diplomatic team. Their fearsome battle armor, which they wore for important ceremonies, looked exactly like bubble wrap painted in pastel colors. Each step made little popping sounds. "Do not be alarmed by our mighty war gear," announced Lord Silvercrest, his armor squeaking as he walked. "This is the strongest material in the galaxy, forged in the hearts of rainbow stars." General Bill White of the U.S. Army leaned over to Tom and whispered, "That's bubble wrap. They're wearing bubble wrap." "I know," Tom whispered back through clenched teeth. "Please don't make me laugh." The Empire delegation lined up in front of the human leaders. Their helmets were shaped like various fruits, and their boots had little bells on the toes. Lord Silvercrest raised his arms dramatically, causing a wave of pop-pop-pop sounds from his armor. "We shall now demonstrate our superior culture," he declared. "First, observe our traditional greeting dance." What followed was 5 minutes of the Empire officials hopping on one foot while making bird noises. According to their culture, the more silly the dance looked, the more respect it showed. "Your turn," Lord Silvercrest announced when they finished. "Show us your most honored greeting dance." Tom cleared his throat. Just shake hands." He held out his hand. The Empire officials gasped in horror. "Just shake hands," one whispered. "How barbaric." "Where is the hopping?" demanded another. "How do you show proper respect without bird noises?" Tom tried to explain. "We find that simple handshakes work." "Unacceptable." Lord Silvercrest's armor popped loudly as he jumped in surprise. "We must teach you proper civilization. Prepare for the emergency cultural education dance." Before anyone could stop them, the Empire officials began what they called their emergency teaching ceremony. They ran in circles, making whooshing sounds and throwing handfuls of glitter into the air. In the crowd, someone started giggling. Then another person. Soon, waves of laughter spread through the gathering. The Empire officials stopped their dance, confused. "Why do humans keep making that sound?" Lord Silvercrest asked his assistant. "Perhaps it's a nerve disorder," the assistant suggested, his fruit-shaped helmet wobbling. "Should we offer them our healing crystals?" The situation got even more complicated when it was time for the diplomatic lunch. The Empire officials stared in shock as humans began eating with their mouths. "What are you doing?" Lord Silvercrest asked, horrified. "Civilized beings absorb nutrients through their elbows. See." He stuck his elbow in his soup bowl. Tom watched as the entire Empire delegation followed suit, dipping their elbows in their food while looking proudly at the humans. Nobody had the heart to tell them that their soup was just dripping down their bubble wrap armor. "Perhaps," Tom suggested carefully, "we could learn about each other's ways of doing things." "Yes," Lord Silvercrest brightened. "We shall begin with the proper way to wear ceremonial armor. Everyone must be dressed in bubble wrap by tomorrow's meeting." As the Empire officials marched back to their ships, popping and jingling with every step, Tom gathered the human leaders. "Okay," he said, "we need to find every roll of bubble wrap on Earth before tomorrow. And please, someone figure out how to explain that elbows are not for eating." The day ended with both sides thoroughly confused but oddly optimistic. The humans couldn't stop laughing, and the Empire couldn't understand why humans were so strange. But somehow, in the middle of all this chaos, they were starting to form an unusual friendship, even if it was accompanied by the constant sound of popping bubble wrap and jingling bells. On the third day of the Empire's visit, they insisted on showing Earth their military might. The demonstration was set up at a large military base in Nevada, where both human and Empire forces gathered under the hot desert sun. General Bill White stood with other military leaders, watching as the Empire's war commander, Lord Twinklestar, prepared for their display of power. The commander wore what he called ultimate battle armor, bubble wrap painted gold with little streamers that fluttered in the wind. "Behold," Lord Twinklestar announced, raising a weapon that looked suspiciously like a toy water gun covered in rhinestones. "Our most devastating weapon, the Doombringer 3000. He pulled the trigger. Everyone tensed up. A stream of rainbow-colored bubbles floated out, accompanied by the sound of wind chimes. The bubbles drifted lazily through the air, popping with tiny ping sounds and releasing the smell of fresh cookies. General White coughed politely. "Is it supposed to do that?" "Yes." Lord Twinklestar beamed proudly. "The enemy becomes so relaxed by the pleasant sounds and smells that they completely forget about fighting." Brilliant, isn't it? The human soldiers tried very hard not to laugh. One of them had to pretend he was having a coughing fit to hide his giggles. "Now," Lord Twinklestar continued, "witness our stealth technology." He clapped his hands 3 times. A massive ship appeared overhead. It was completely covered in glitter and had bright flashing lights all around its edges. Streamers hung from its sides, and it played what sounded like ice cream truck music. "This is our most secret stealth ship," Lord Twinklestar whispered loudly. "The enemy never sees it coming because they're too busy admiring how pretty it is." General White pinched the bridge of his nose. "That's not exactly how stealth works." "And now," Lord Twinklestar interrupted, "our elite combat squad will demonstrate their battle moves." 20 Empire soldiers marched out, their bubble-wrap armor popping with each step. They formed a circle and began what looked like a combination of ballet and hopscotch, occasionally throwing handfuls of glitter at each other. "These are our deadliest combat techniques," Lord Twinklestar explained proudly. "No one can resist the power of synchronized dance fighting." A young human lieutenant raised his hand. "Sir, what happens if the enemy shoots at you while you're dancing?" The Empire soldiers gasped in horror. "Shooting? During a dance battle? How uncivilized." To show their own military capability, the humans set up a simple target practice demonstration. General White picked up a standard rifle and hit the center of a target 100 yards away. The Empire soldiers watched in shocked silence. But where are the dancing moves?" one asked, confused. "And the pretty lights?" another added. "And why didn't it smell like cookies?" a third wondered. Lord Twinklestar shook his head sadly. "Humans have so much to learn about proper warfare. Here, let me show you our victory celebration dance. It's guaranteed to make any enemy surrender from pure joy." Before anyone could stop him, he started spinning in circles, throwing pink flower petals everywhere, while singing what sounded like a nursery rhyme backwards. The human soldiers finally lost it. The entire base erupted in laughter. Even General White couldn't keep a straight face anymore. "Why do humans always make that strange noise when we show them our most impressive things?" Lord Twinklestar asked, still spinning. "Maybe they're overwhelmed by our military excellence," suggested one of his officers, adjusting his glitter-covered helmet. As the day ended, the Empire forces marched back to their ships, their armor popping all the way. Behind them, they left trails of glitter, flower petals, and the lingering smell of fresh-baked cookies. General White gathered his officers. "Well, folks," he said, trying to keep his voice steady, "I never thought I'd say this, but we just witnessed an intergalactic superpower whose main military strategy is to be adorable." "Should we be worried, sir?" asked a captain. "About the only thing we need to worry about," General White replied, watching the Empire's glittering ships take off, his dying from laughter during their next battle dance. The Empire had completely redefined the meaning of military might, just not in the way they intended. 3 days after the first contact, the Empire decided to show off their advanced technology. They set up what they called their Supreme Science Showcase in a large conference room at MIT. Professor Mark Brown, Earth's top scientist for the first contact team, watched as the Empire scientists unpacked their equipment. "Behold," announced Dr. Sparkles, the Empire's chief science officer, wearing a lab coat covered in tiny mirrors. "Our most advanced computer." They unveiled what looked like a large crystal ball filled with swirling glitter. Small butterflies made of light fluttered inside it. "This is the Thought 5000, Dr. Sparkles explained proudly. "It runs on crystallized sunshine and positive thoughts." Professor Brown blinked several times. "I'm sorry. Did you say positive thoughts?" "Yes. Watch." Dr. Sparkles hugged the crystal ball and whispered, "You're doing amazing, sweetie." The ball glowed brighter. Another Empire scientist stepped forward. "To make it work faster, we must sing to it." The entire Empire science team began humming a cheerful tune. Professor Brown looked at his laptop, then back at the singing scientists. "Would you like to see how our computers work?" "Oh, you poor things," Dr. Sparkles said sympathetically, patting the laptop. "Still using solid objects. We abandoned those years ago, when we discovered the power of rainbow energy." To demonstrate their advanced technology, the Empire scientists brought out their next invention. It looked like a lava lamp filled with soap bubbles. "This," Dr. Sparkles announced dramatically, "is our faster-than-light communication device. It sends messages through the power of happy dreams." A young human scientist raised her hand. "How does it actually work?" "Simple," Dr. Sparkles beamed. "First, you think happy thoughts. Then you tell your message to this friendly bubble here." He pointed to a particularly large bubble. "Then the bubble travels through the dream dimension to deliver your message." "But what about radio waves or quantum communication?" the human scientist asked. The Empire scientists gasped in horror. "You mean you force particles to do math?" Dr. Sparkles clutched his chest. "How cruel. Our bubbles volunteer for the job." Professor Brown decided to show them a simple demonstration of Earth's internet. He opened a video call with a colleague in Japan. The Empire scientists watched in confusion. "Where are the dream bubbles?" one asked. "And why isn't anyone singing to make it work?" wondered another. "This is wrong," Dr. Sparkles declared. "Technology must be pretty and musical. Here, let me show you our energy generator." They brought out what appeared to be a disco ball covered in flower stickers. "This powers our entire fleet," Dr. Sparkles explained. "It runs on the power of friendship and dance energy." "Dance energy?" Professor Brown couldn't help but ask. "Of course. Watch." The Empire scientists joined hands and began dancing around the disco ball, singing what sounded like a pop song mixed with bird calls. One of the human engineers whispered to Professor Brown, "Should we tell them about nuclear fusion?" "Let's wait," Professor Brown whispered back. "I want to see what happens when they run out of dance energy." The demonstration continued with more bizarre inventions. The Empire showed off their gravity nullifier, a bunch of helium balloons, their food replicator, a garden with very enthusiastic plants that liked to be hugged, and their weather control device, a giant fan with ribbons attached. Finally, Professor Brown gathered his courage. "Your technology is certainly unique," he said diplomatically. "But have you considered that there might be other ways to do things?" "Other ways?" Dr. Sparkles looked shocked. "You mean, without singing?" "Well, yes. We could show you how our technology works. It's quite effective, even without the glitter." The Empire scientists huddled together, whispering and occasionally glancing at the human technology. Finally, Dr. Sparkles spoke. "We accept your offer to learn about your strange, unmusical technology," he announced, "but only if we can add at least some glitter to it. For efficiency, of course." Professor Brown smiled. "I'm sure we can find a middle ground. Maybe we could start with something simple, like explaining why computers don't actually need to be praised to work properly." The Empire scientists nodded eagerly, though they still looked uncertain about any technology that didn't require singing or dance moves to function. And so began the strangest technology exchange program in human history. where Earth's scientists tried to explain binary code to aliens who believed in powering spaceships through the power of friendship. 1 week after first contact, it was time to discuss trade between Earth and the Empire. The meeting took place in a large conference room at the World Trade Center, where both sides gathered to show their most valuable goods. Bob Taylor, Earth's chief trade negotiator, arranged Earth's items on one table: advanced computer chips, medical equipment, renewable energy technology, and rare minerals. The Empire's trade minister, Lord Glowpeedle, watched with growing horror. "You want to trade actual physical objects?" "Well, yes," Bob replied. "What were you planning to trade?" Lord Glowpeedle clapped his hands excitedly. "Let me show you real treasure." He opened a sparkly briefcase and pulled out several items. First, our most precious commodity, bottled starlight. He held up what looked like a glass jar full of glitter. Each jar contains one happy thought from a distant star. Bob stared at the jar. "And what does it do?" "Do?" Lord Glowpeedle looked confused. "It makes you feel pretty when you look at it." The Empire minister then brought out their next trading item. It was a small box that played tinkling music. "Behold, captured rainbow ends. Very rare, very valuable." One of the human trade experts whispered to Bob, "Are they seriously trying to trade glitter and music boxes for our technology?" Lord Glowpeedle wasn't finished. He proudly displayed more items: cloud whispers in crystal form, cotton balls in jars, unicorn dreams, soap bubbles in pink bottles, and friendship bracelets made from woven moonbeams, regular string with glow-in-the-dark beads. Each item, he explained seriously, comes with its own happiness certificate and a small bell to ring when you're feeling sad. Bob tried to stay professional. "These are interesting items, but we were hoping to establish trade in more practical goods." "Practical?" Lord Glowpeedle gasped. "You mean like those cold, unfeeling machines?" He pointed at the computer chips. "Where is their joy? Their sparkle? Do they even make pleasant tinkling sounds?" "No," Bob admitted, "but they can process millions of calculations per second." "But can they make you smile?" Lord Glowpeedle challenged, hugging his jar of glitter. Another Empire official stepped forward with their trade proposal. "We offer 10,000 happiness certificates, 500 jars of captured daydreams, and our finest collection of musical clouds in exchange for—" He checked his notes. "All of Earth's chocolate. All of Earth's chocolate." Bob repeated in disbelief. "We discovered it yesterday," Lord Glowpeedle explained, his eyes wide. "It's the only thing you humans make that properly appreciates the value of joy, though it could use more glitter." Bob took a deep breath. "Perhaps we could start smaller. Maybe trade some technology for reasonable amounts of specific goods." The Empire officials gasped collectively. "He said the T word," one whispered fearfully. Now," Lord Glowpeedle said soothingly. "They don't know any better. Let me explain value to you humans." He pulled out what looked like a PowerPoint presentation, except every slide was just pictures of rainbows and kittens. For the next hour, the Empire officials explained their economic system, which seemed to be based entirely on how much something made you want to hug it. Their currency was measured in smile points and sparkle ratings. Finally, Bob had an idea. "What if," he suggested carefully, "we created a special trade program? We could exchange some of our technology for your unique items, while also teaching each other about our different value systems." Lord Glowpeedle considered this. "Would we be allowed to add glitter to the technology?" "A reasonable amount," Bob agreed, already regretting his words. "And could we sing to it sometimes? As long as it doesn't interfere with its operation." "Deal." Lord Glowpeedle threw handfuls of glitter in the air. "Let the great trade of joy begin." As the Empire officials danced around the room, throwing sparkles and ringing tiny bells, Bob turned to his team. "Well," he said, watching glitter settle on their expensive technology, "at least we know what to do with all those confiscated disco balls from the 70s. And so began the strangest trade relationship in human history, where advanced technology was exchanged for bottles of happy thoughts, now with extra glitter. 2 weeks into Earth's relationship with the Galactic Empire, it was time to discuss laws and government systems. The meeting was held at The Hague, where Earth's top legal experts gathered to understand the Empire's way of running things. Judge Peter Adams sat at the head of the conference table, legal books stacked neatly in front of him. Across from him, Lord Dreamweaver, the Empire's Chief Justice, prepared to explain their legal system. He wore what he called his official justice robe, a rainbow-colored outfit covered in tiny mirrors and bells. "Let us begin with how we make laws," Lord Dreamweaver announced. He stood up and started spinning in circles. "What are you doing?" Judge Adams asked, confused. "Explaining our legal code, of course." Lord Dreamweaver continued spinning. "All our laws must be performed in interpretive dance. This one means no parking on Tuesdays." The human lawyers watched in bewilderment as Lord Dreamweaver hopped on one foot, waving his arms like a bird. "And this," he said, now doing what looked like the chicken dance, "means tax regulations." A young lawyer raised her hand. "How do you write these laws down?" Lord Dreamweaver stopped dancing, looking shocked. "Write them down. Laws must be felt in the heart. Every morning, our citizens gather to dance the entire legal code together." "All of it?" Judge Adams asked. "Oh yes, it only takes 6 hours, and everyone gets great exercise." Lord Dreamweaver beamed. "Now let me show you how we handle criminal cases." He pulled out what looked like a large crystal ball filled with sparkly water. "This is our justice sphere. When someone breaks a law, they must stare into it while thinking happy thoughts. If the water turns pink, they're innocent. If it turns blue, they have to attend mandatory rainbow appreciation classes." The human lawyers exchanged worried glances. "What about evidence? Witnesses? Due process?" Judge Adams asked. "Evidence." Lord Dreamweaver looked confused. "We just ask the accused to sing their side of the story. If they hit all the right notes, they're clearly telling the truth." He demonstrated by singing a high-pitched melody that apparently meant, "I didn't steal that spaceship. I was home hugging my pet cloud." "And this is how we handle business disputes," another Empire official added, pulling out a set of colorful dice. "Both parties roll for sparkle points. Whoever gets the most rainbows wins." Judge Adams rubbed his temples. "What about contracts?" "Oh, those are simple," Lord Dreamweaver explained. "Both parties hold hands and skip in a circle while humming their agreement. It's legally binding once they finish the friendship dance." One of the human lawyers stood up. "This isn't law. This is just perfect harmony." Lord Dreamweaver finished, throwing glitter in the air. "Which reminds me, it's time for the mandatory mid-meeting joy break." Before anyone could stop them, the Empire officials formed a conga line and danced around the conference room, singing about universal love and cosmic happiness. Judge Adams watched as his dignified courtroom turned into a disco party. "Perhaps," he suggested when the dance break finally ended, "we could find a way to combine our different approaches." "You mean?" Lord Dreamweaver gasped. "You want to add dancing to your laws?" "No, I mean maybe we could help you create a written legal code, while keeping some of your unique cultural elements." The Empire officials huddled together, whispering and occasionally breaking into short dance moves. Finally, Lord Dreamweaver spoke. "We accept, but on 3 conditions. First, all law books must be sparkly. Second, judges must wear at least 1 bell. And third, court must always begin with a group hug." Judge Adams looked at his fellow lawyers, who were trying desperately not to laugh. "I suppose we could accommodate some of those requests." "Wonderful." Lord Dreamweaver clapped his hands. "Now, who wants to learn the dance that means parking violation appeals process?" As the Empire officials began another elaborate dance number, Judge Adams turned to his colleagues. "Well," he said, watching glitter rain down on centuries-old law books, At least court sessions won't be boring anymore. And so began the great legal reform, where Earth's systematic laws met the Empire's interpretive dance justice system, with some very interesting results. 1 month after first contact, both humans and the Empire gathered at the United Nations for a final meeting to decide their future relationship. The Great Hall sparkled with a mix of formal decoration and Empire-added glitter. Tom Baker, the UN Secretary-General, sat beside Lord Silvercrest, whose bubble-wrap armor had been upgraded with tiny LED lights. Looking back, Tom said, trying not to smile at the twinkling Empire official, "This has been quite a month." "Oh yes." Lord Silvercrest jingled happily. "We've learned so much about your strange ways. Did you know some of our ships now have actual engines instead of running purely on happy thoughts?" "And you've certainly changed things on Earth," Tom replied, watching as a group of human diplomats walked by, their formal suits now decorated with mandatory sparkly badges and tiny bells. Dr. Sparkles, the Empire's chief scientist, rushed up to them excitedly. "Wonderful news! After adding glitter to your computers, we discovered they work 0.001% faster if we sing to them while they process data." Professor Brown, walking behind him, just shook his head and smiled. "And we've learned that a little bit of positive thinking doesn't hurt when doing complex calculations." Lord Twinklestar, the war commander, joined them. His battle armor still popped with every step, but now it had practical padding underneath the bubble wrap. "The joint military exercises are going well. We've agreed that while dance battles are fun, actual defense systems might be useful too. Though we still insist on playing cheerful music during combat training," added a human general who had grown oddly fond of his glitter-covered helmet. Lord Dreamweaver danced by, followed by a group of human lawyers who were reluctantly learning to incorporate simple dance moves into court proceedings. "Justice is so much more fun now," he sang. "Yesterday we settled a major case with only 3 dance numbers and 2 actual legal arguments." Tom stood up to address the gathered crowd. "A month ago, when we first saw your ships, we couldn't stop laughing. We thought you were," he paused diplomatically, "different. And we thought you were all so serious." Lord Silvercrest added, "Always wanting things to make logical sense. But look at us now," Tom continued. "You've learned that sometimes practicality is important. And you've learned that sometimes a little silliness makes everything better." Lord Silvercrest threw a handful of glitter in the air. The crowd applauded, half formally, half while dancing. Tom raised his hand for quiet. "So, shall we make it official? Earth would like to join the Galactic Empire, with some conditions." "Name them," Lord Silvercrest said, his bells jingling with excitement. 1. We keep our practical technology, but we're happy to add reasonable amounts of glitter." "Agreed." 2. Military defense will be based on actual weapons, but we can keep the dance battles for ceremonial occasions, as long as we still get to throw glitter during victories. 3. Laws will be written down properly, but court sessions can start with a group hug." "Perfect." And finally, Tom smiled, "Earth maintains the right to laugh when your ships still look like teapots, but we promise to do it fondly." Lord Silvercrest beamed. "We accept, and we have one condition too. Everyone must learn at least one happy dance." The hall erupted in cheers and laughter, no longer mocking, but joyful. Humans and Empire officials hugged, danced, and threw celebratory glitter. "You know," Tom said to Lord Silvercrest as they watched the celebration, "the universe turned out to be very different from what we expected." "Yes," Lord Silvercrest agreed. "We thought we'd find primitive beings, but instead we found friends who taught us that sometimes the best solution isn't the prettiest one. And you taught us that maybe we were a bit too serious about everything." As if to prove his point, the celebration ended with the most unusual sight yet: dignified world leaders and Empire officials doing the conga line around the UN Hall, their formal clothes covered in glitter, bells jingling with every step. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was perfectly fine with everyone. And so began humanity's great adventure among the stars, where practical science met happy thoughts, and everything was just a little bit more sparkly than before.